Good morning. How are you? Okay, so I thought I'd do a quick stream because overnight there's been some news of something that's actually very close to my heart, which is it's funny actually because I was talking about diversity and inclusion yesterday and how they're kind of thought terminating cliches now and how I've stopped using them. But diversity and inclusion in tech is something that's actually very close to my heart. Okay, I've been in tech for a long time, a very long time, despite being a political scientist and all that stuff, right? And a little bit of background. So I started in politics, and then for those who have first time video, right? I started in politics, and then moved into web design, fell into that, and then into user experience design and tech, right? I've got a broad range of tech skills that you just gather just by virtue of being like as old as I am in at the time I am. I'm not a specialist. I know a lot of this stuff. I'm a woman in tech, right? I'm a UX designer. And early on in the web days, people couldn't reconcile the fact that I had a degree in politics and was also in tech. Like they saw them as diametrically opposed forces, okay? I've spent my entire career as a feminist, as somebody who has tried to get more people at the table. And when I talk about, I've often talked about the idea of, marketing becoming a feminized industry. The second women move into an industry, generally it becomes lower paid, lower status. You don't get invited to meetings. I've been a CMO, which is a chief marketing officer, head of marketing, right, for a tech company. And I wasn't even invited to the meetings. Like I call all of these things like the chief diversity officer, which this morning made me laugh because I thought of diversity and inclusion, and then I came up with diversion, and that is exactly what it is. It's a chief diversion officer. So I'm laughing at my own jokes here. It's fucking fabulous. Anyway, so I'm going to call it chief diversion officer, and you'll know why. Like if you've watched my videos, you'll understand that what I'm saying is not that I'm opposed to diversity and inclusion. I say that it is not that. It is a diversion from the real issues. And this is something that I know an awful lot about because this is my life. Okay, so I'm going to say some things that make some people very uncomfortable right now. And I'm going to say that I actually have always been in support of James Damore, and I'm not alt-right. I'm a feminist, okay? So shut the fuck up, everyone. Now, the reason why I just want to make that clear, I think he was given a really unfair deal, and I think that when you understand, again, I have an autistic son, I'm on the spectrum, neurodiversity, when you factor in diversity, right? The fact that they would pick on an autistic fucking dude who was merely stating his opinion when asked for it. It's not like he was sitting in the lunchroom mouthing off. He was asked for a submission and then consequently fired for writing his response from his perspective, which I don't 100% agree with, but I do agree with aspects of it. And I'll talk you through that. But, right? What a fucking joke. A lot of James Damore was actually one of the people, the first stories that I started to really unravel that a lot of this stuff is not what it seems, because I'm sitting there going, okay, so why are they picking on this guy who's clearly on the spectrum, okay? A lot of people at Google are. That goes with the territory, right? A lot of our brightest minds tend to be on the fucking burger variety. That's just how it is. That's the trade-off. But, anyway, I don't want to go too much into the detail of that story. I think everyone, if you're not familiar with it, do Google James Damore. But TLDR, Taya, he basically got fired for saying that the problem, so basically Google asked internally for feedback on diversity and inclusion, okay, and their thoughts and quotas and all that sort of stuff. The problem of women in tech, right? A known problem, right? Women are underrepresented in tech across the board. A lot of the jobs that we are given tend to be in the feminized industries. I've suffered this my whole life. having some IT dude fucking talk down to me like I don't know. And what's the code? I don't understand. I don't know what algorithms are because I'm a girl. Like, you know, like I know this. Like that's what they do, right? That's just part, it goes with it. Okay. Dudes be dudes, right? But it is also a little bit of an engineer thing. Okay, I'm just going to say it's an engineer thing to be a little bit condescending and a little bit autistic and a little bit unaware of sort of the situational awareness, right? It's one of the things that I love most about autistic fucking men. They're just so clueless that it's great. Anyway, so, so basically he was asked for a submission. He basically said that he didn't believe that quotas were a good idea. I actually disagree with quotas as well. I think it's a simplistic fix. I understand the reasons why, but I think that we're seeing it now. I said this yesterday, is that what we are seeing now is that it doesn't address the underlying problem, which is mediocre boys club golf buddy white men getting promoted ahead of competent women of colour, you know, all of those people, and you know, other groups, right, that are disadvantaged. They don't talk about economically disadvantaged people or class, by the way, right? I'm somebody who doesn't work at Google because I'm too poor to work at Google and I'm in the wrong location. Like, if you actually want to talk about real diversity, we should address those sorts of things. Because I didn't go to the right university and my CV isn't like the right fucking, you know, doesn't have the right names on it. That's the problem with tech companies, okay? It's elitism, it's not... Anyway, I've digressed. So basically he said that it was benign. Like what he said was benign, but he was basically fired for saying that there are biological differences between men and women, which is true. Like that, I know people like to say that feminists don't acknowledge that, but we do. Okay, like this is a straw man argument where apologies. Got the Rona. Okay, give me a sec. So, start again. So, what happened? It's always fun on a live stream. Give me 1 minute. Okay. It would be just like me to drop dead on a live stream, wouldn't it? Okay. I wasn't even sick. Okay. I will go down to fighting for this stuff. Okay. All right. It starts with an itchy... Peter said, don't do a video tomorrow. I'm worried what will happen. It's like... It started with a itchy nose yesterday, progressed into a cough. No, I'm all right. I honestly think that I'm allergic to this corner of the house. I think there might be something outside just here that's bothering me. Anyway, so let's start again, shall we? Stop shaking the thing. I need to get one of those boom... the shock absorber thingies for the microphone and webcam. So I apologise if the table's shaking. It's just a gear issue. Anyway, so back where I was. So James Damore, unfortunately, got zugzwanged, okay, and got Kafka trapped, which was basically tell us what you think, but don't actually say anything that disagrees with it. Now, this is a symptom of this broader, this sort of diversity inclusion cult that I think it's actually really interesting because I have a feeling, I was speculating yesterday that this was something that the tech companies knew about. Like they know, you can't, look, people smarter than me work at Google, okay? And I'm saying this with all my experience that I can see that these guys know how cult psychology operates, right? Google have successfully built a cult culture, right? Within their organization. I've seen, I've got friends that work there and people that work there. And when they join the cult, it's like, it is a bit like joining a fucking cult. They know what this is, okay? They've seen it for what it is. Now, what's interesting is seeing them back away from it. Because, anyway, I'll go further. I'm just going to recalibrate my brain because, gasping for air is generally not fucking TV friendly. Also, tell me if the sound is okay, because I had problems yesterday. If you watched with the noise gate sort of tapping out, too high. So hopefully I have fixed it this time. Now, eventually I will just be able to turn it on and stream, not die, and say what I was going to say. Okay, so now the interesting thing that happened overnight was that, and so this has been, so basically, okay, history. So he got fired, and very unfairly treated, very unfairly reported. And this really made me go, okay, well, this was one of those sort of ping, that when I've talked about this before with that thread unraveling, where I go, this isn't what it seems. All right, I was on this diversity and inclusion train, right? Not the diversion train, but the diversity and inclusion train. And I was talking about it in a material sense, such as, okay, there is a problem with women in tech. I've lived this, right? All my life I've been seen as a designer or the creative one, not realizing that I'm actually an amazing brain, right? I have been gently nudged towards more feminized careers, no matter how many projects I lead, how much I assert myself, how much I try harder, how much I learn, how much I study, how much I achieve. Fucking 15 years into my career, I still get people asking me if I will design them a logo, right? That's a thing, okay? I've been told at least this whole business thing keeps your brain busy while you have children, right? No one ever says that to men in tech, right? There's a problem with women in tech and minorities in tech, right? Well, certain types of minorities. One would argue that you've got to be the right kind of brown as well. Anyway, it's not really anyway, it's a side point. So there's a problem, right? Which is that tech is dominated by Ivy League rich white men. Mark Zuckerberg, right? Whether they continued on or not, they still build the networks, right? It's all about your networks. It's all who you know. Silicon Valley is a big fucking circle jerk. Try not to die. So this has been my experience, like being a woman in tech in Perth who has a brain, who has ideas, who challenges sort of the mainstream, who makes them think. Right, that's not been good for my career. It's not been good for me. So I know I haven't been. I know that if I had a dick, I'd be fucking CEO of some tech company. Right, it's just a fact. Because I've just got a male personality and a fucking unfortunate female body in an unfortunate Western Australian location, right? But again, I'm not sitting there whinging saying that I have the right to work at Google. Like some people seem to think that, I don't know if that's the case anymore, but it still is. Like their recruitment, I've worked at tech companies. I've interviewed for a few of them. I've gone through a few of the processes and I didn't make it. And that's okay. I wasn't good enough, right? But I didn't turn around and say it's because I'm a girl. I said it's because, I choked or it wasn't the right fit. Okay, and that's okay too. But I've gone through these recruitment processes and they are brutal, okay? Now, I actually think that Google's recruitment processes border on cruel. And I think that especially, and Microsoft, I've gone through the Microsoft interview process. And I know this is a digression, but it's just coming to me now. Do you know that they have 6 interviews, okay? So I got approached for a solutions architect role at Microsoft, which was pretty exciting because, they were doing great things. They were good with women, generally. For tech, they're pretty good with women. And so I was approached to be a solutions architect when they would initially acquired Yammer, and they needed sort of social brains and people who understood sort of collaboration and that sort of stuff. And there was 6 interviews. I passed 5, but then I got one other woman. Okay, this is interesting story. So I went to interview number 1, smashed it. Interview number 2, smashed it. Okay. Interview number 3, smashed it. Interview number 4, smashed it. Interview number 5 with a woman, right? The only other woman who basically made it her entire mission to trip me up the entire time, made me feel extremely uncomfortable the entire time, right? And at the time, I didn't know that I was on the spectrum, so I didn't have coping skills to be able to say, look, but she put me basically in a situation that was not, I wasn't going to, she just made me freeze, right? She just made me feel so uncomfortable and stressed and like just bullied, right? And this was another woman, right? The other guy, the other 4 were men who all said yes to me. This woman had decided that I was not going to be there from the gate, right? She went, nah. And she said no. And because interviews at Microsoft have to be unanimous, I got the call that said, sorry, no. This woman basically just, she was horrible. And that's not, that's not a problem for men in tech, is it? Other women have always actually been the problem for me, right? Who are territorial women who fucking fight over scraps. And again, we can do a feminist analysis as to why women are fighting over scraps at the kids' table and bitching in the marketing department rather than trying to get a seat at the grown-ups table. But, it's another issue. I've never played those fucking stupid bitchy woman games, right? I hate them. They hate me because I'm just one of the boys, always have been, right? So, and I also am one of those people who I acknowledge the structural problems for being a woman in tech, particularly a mother, right? A working mother in tech, because that whole culture of working till you drop, you can't be a parent and do that. You can't have parental responsibilities and work at Google because they have a culture that's around the grind and the hustle and working around the clock. The Google campuses aren't designed they're designed to keep you there, right? They don't have sleep pods because they want you to sleep during the day. They still have people side-eyeing you if you take a nap. They want it so that you are working there and you stay there and you don't leave campus because they know that you work longer hours. Like, people know that if you work at your desk, you don't actually take a lunch break, right? It's just fucking, they know all of this stuff. They don't do it because they're good guys. Anyway, so that's a little bit of insight. But the point about Microsoft that I was trying to get to was that a lot of my problems have been other women, right? Every single limitation that I've had in my career has been because another woman has had it out for me. Okay? Not because a lot of the people that have supported me in my career have been men, and they have been men who hold me to the same standards as other men, and I like that because I can rise to that challenge, right? I'm not looking for a fucking favor. I'm not looking for a daddy to help me out. Anyway, so that was a slight digression. But I'm saying I know a lot about this because I've lived life. I've lived in this career constantly relegated to marketing, despite being told that I'm in marketing, despite being very technical and a leader and a fucking hell of a project manager and getting shit over the line. So anyway, that exists, but that's not a biological difference either. The answer is fucking, I'm sick of this fucking, is it biology or is it socially constructed? The answer is both. Okay, they work in conjunction with each other. The left hand works with the right hand and they work in conjunction. So when it comes to diversity and inclusion, when it's both, there is no one solution to any problem. Both things can be true at once, right? So So this guy turns around and says because of biological differences, which is true. Like that study from Jordan Peterson that they like to cherry pick, which is, you know, that there's a lot more super smart men and super smart women. That's not entirely true, but but also the fact that women tend to be more social, which broadens their horizons. So, for instance, a man at the top quotient, the top IQ, would be more likely to go into, say, engineering or software engineering or mathematical or physics, all those sorts of things, whereas women would be more likely to go into something like medicine, psychology, psychiatry, UX design. So for me, I've got a technical brain, but because I'm better at the project side of things and more creative, and that one could argue women are better designers than men, which is true. I think that lots of factors, including that more men are colorblind, but I'm just saying that women are probably generally more aesthetic when it comes to design. So that opens up my so I ended up in UX. And also just because I'm interested in politics, right? So someone who, you know, is, but it's even in the arts, it's the same thing, where men might go more into sort of logic, debate, parliament, politics, power positions. Women be more likely to go into more helping type of stuff. I don't disagree with that. Anyway, he got fired for saying that. But that lawsuit seems to have gone away. And that's what happened overnight. So now, obviously at this point it is speculation, because we're not going to know what happened, because he's obviously he petitioned the court and co-signed by Google to drop the lawsuit. Now, we all know what that means. Because Google, what's interesting is that Google's diversity report was also released, and also a fucking article which just makes me roll my eyes, because the way that this stuff is presented. But what I'm seeing evidence that the diversion movement, which is what I'm going to call it from now on, it's not diversity and inclusion, it's diversion. Look over here. Okay, let's not look at actual material problems like class, location, resources, the fucking ridiculous like elitism around the choice of university, right? That's actually another problem with Google. Also, parenthood. They discriminate against parents and people who can't work 12-hour days. You know, lots of other things. Also, the interesting thing that I've seen is that Google didn't include contractors or people who are working for other subcontracted companies. And I would actually think that, because I've done a lot of marketing work with other tech companies, that other big ones that are, you know, comparable, not obviously not the same size as Google, but comparable. So they operate very similarly. And a lot of those agencies, creatives, freelancers, copy, you know, content, all of those sorts of things, a lot of that kind of work is outsourced, and a lot of that work is women. So I'd be curious to actually see what their contractor diversity rates are, because I'd say that there's probably more women that are contractors purely because, or subcontractors. I actually know several who currently subcontract to big tech companies. So, but they don't work full time. But because the tech companies tend to hire engineers and AI people and, you know, all of that sort of stuff full time. But the other stuff they tend to keep part time and contract. So, anyway, that's, again, there's a whole, it's such a fucking complex layer. Like even Facebook's moderation is not, you don't work for Facebook, right? You work for a company that subcontracts. Like, you know, like with the hospitals here, you've got Serco who run the public hospital. It's not technically owned by it's owned by the government, but operationally it's run by a big company and outsourced, and they tender and stuff. So I would like to see that incorporated into the diversity report, because I think that would paint a very interesting picture, because gut feel is that that's actually largely women and people and minorities, and I think that would actually improve their quotas, because I think that a lot of those a developing world and those sorts of things that would, you know, I can see how that would skew their figures, but I've still got to look through the diversity report in detail. I've gone into too much detail. I know this is boring. So anyway, so quietly overnight, it was reported that James Damore has dropped the case. Now, I'm going to just read this article through. So I use Pocket. Okay, this is from CNET, but I can't ad vomit whenever I open and all the pop-ups, and because I use a pop-up blocker and all that shit, it ends up being a terrible, so I end up getting annoyed. So we're just reading a stripped down version, okay, but the original's here, so it's cnet.com. So Google and James Damore, an engineer it fired in 2017, have agreed to dismiss his lawsuit against the tech giant, a quiet end to a loud case that began with a controversial memo in which Damore criticised the company's efforts to improve the diversity of its workforce. Quote, "This matter is dismissed in its entirety," unquote. Judge Brian Walsh wrote in a Thursday order with the Superior Court in Santa Clara, the Silicon Valley county where Google is headquartered, after Damore and Google, quote, agreed to end the case ... between them, right? Details of the agreement weren't disclosed. That's very interesting, okay? And I'll explain why. So Damore's 3,300-word memo in 2017 asserted women are underrepresented in the technology industry, not because of bias and discrimination, which is not true, okay? But because preferences and abilities of men and women differ in part due to biological causes, right? And that's a valid view, okay? Okay, my beef with this was that he was asked his view, he gave his view, and he was fired for his view. Now, that's not good faith. That's not fair. Right, that's pretty shitty, especially when you factor in the overarching issue here is inclusion and diversity, and this guy is autistic. It's like, can we give this guy a fucking little bit of slack? Again, but do I agree with James Damore? No. Do I think he was treated shittily? Yes. Do I think that quotas are a good idea? Probably not. Do I think that they can work in some instances? Yes. Do I want to sit in a boardroom with 8 other men who don't think I deserve to be there? No. Right? This is complicated. Quotas are complicated, and I just don't think that it's, again, okay, we'll get to the point. Which is what I think has happened with Google is that they have actually started to see what works, what doesn't work. And what doesn't work is inclusion brunches and workshops and shame spirals and self-flagellation, okay? So anyway, let's get started to get heated. So, now, I'll move on here. So he got fired for violation. Let's just move on. Damore became something of a right-wing cause célèbre, which is, okay, right-wing, again, is loaded. The US national it means right of anybody who disagrees. I'm considered right-wing. Marxist fucking feminist, considered right-wing. The US, if you believe that anything is more complicated than this cult, you're considered right-wing, which is insane, absolutely insane. And just because the right wing adopt this poor guy doesn't mean that, fucking hell. Anyway, I agree with him too. No one's turned around saying that he's the cause célèbre of all the Marxist feminists. It's like, no, I think he was treated unfairly. So anyway, the US National Labor Relations Board said Google's firing was legal. Damore sued in 2018, arguing that he was punished for heterodox political views and for being a white male. So that's an interesting argument. I understand why people think that that's a bit fucking funny. However, he's got a point. And I think that you need to understand that this is not, ordinarily, I think our reaction would be, oh my God, why is he doing this? But it's in the context of the fact that this group of people are now in power. And he is the resistance, okay? He is fighting this woke cult that I've been talking about, okay? Where they disguise the meaning of what they're trying to do. They police everybody who doesn't agree with them. They fire everybody who doesn't agree with them, okay? They bully everyone who doesn't agree with them. They call anybody who doesn't toe the line around these nonsense postmodern ideas They make every attempt to destroy their lives. Okay, they defame them, they get them fired. When people talk about cancel culture, that's what we're talking about. Okay, now I'm not saying that a version of that doesn't exist on the right. That's true. That, you know, but yeah, I'm focused on this group right now. So Google didn't respond to requests for comment. They've suppressed this. So again, a lot of this is speculation, but I'm making a connection here. Knowing what I know about the industry, knowing that people at Google are generally pretty fucking smart. Okay, I think they know about this, and they realize that they've backed the wrong horse. Okay. But I think they also acknowledge the issue. Now, what's interesting is how this is being reported and spun by woke people, right? And I'll get to that. So Google didn't respond to questions for comment, and Damore's attorney, Harmeet Dillon, didn't comment on details of the agreement to close Damore's case. But Dillon believes the case has had repercussions in corporate America, which I believe is true as well, which I think that people are waking up to what I'm saying, which is that this stuff, these values, this isn't what it appears to be. Okay, real feminists, real activists, people like me who've been talking about diversity and inclusion and women in tech and getting a seat at the table, all those sorts of things. We have been sidelined by cult members. They have shoved us out of the way. Okay, the same people that were digital strategy. There's a fucking grift. Like when you talk about grifting, right? There's a bunch of people on LinkedIn who 2 years ago they were digital strategists. Right? And they were social media. When social media was new, they were social media experts. Then they were content strategists. Then they were PR. Then they were Instagram influencers. Now they're diversity consultants. There's always a grift. And the thing is that what they're going to do is leave these legitimate issues in tatters, the issues that I have fought for my entire career and will continue to fight for, okay, and continue to advocate for. And if I was, I would love to be working at Google, right? But I can't get I don't go to the right university, whatever. These guys have muscled their way in, and the emperor has no clothes. The emperor has no clothes, and it turns out she's got a dick. Fucking crying game shit, no. Also, Peter just said that Harmeet Dillon is a bigwig in the Republican Party, so that hasn't helped the whole right-wing cause celebre thing. Yeah, but you know what? I think the more that I go into this, the more that I realise, right? First of all, fucking name-calling. This it's just framing, right? It's bullshit. Also, maybe it's just because I've been in the business world, right? I don't see, like, I'm friends with people across the political spectrum. I know people who used to work for Malcolm Turnbull because I used to be involved in the Australian Republican movement, right, in the early days when Turnbull was in charge. And I know all of those crew, right, who used to work with Malcolm Turnbull. I know people who work for the Greens. I know people who work at whatever, right? And you go, oh yeah, they're not the enemy. They're all just human beings. It's the same thing in the business world. Like, do you know how many times I've had the Liberal Party approach me and say, you're in the wrong party? And I go, no, I'm not. I just, we can coexist. But this whole, he's a Republican, or he's a Democrat, and he's not in my tribe. I think a very big sign of stupidity is tribalism. Like, I actually Graham Linehan did an interview with the trigonometry guys yesterday, which you may or may not know that I did their website. And Graham, and because, Graham he's been like me, a bit like me, where he misbehaved in the past, but these guys aren't letting him forget it. And these guys are fuckwits too. Like, they sit there going, oh, he was mean to Dankula. Yeah, and he apologised for it. Like, you're fucking just as bad. Anyway, I've digressed. But this tribal shit, right? In the middle, there is this poor fucking guy in the middle of tribal shit who has no idea what's going on, right? He was asked look, I know how autistic brains work, right? He was asked for his opinion. He did some research. He went off and thought, I'm going to write my opinion and do some research and try to contribute. And he wouldn't have understood the implications of what he was doing because he's an engineer. Engineers aren't social scientists. They don't know this shit. They're fucking clueless in certain areas, and they're wonderful for it. Like, I've always been fucking weirdly attracted to autistic, fucking weird, engineering, smart men. So it's just a thing for me because they're so clueless. So, yeah, anyway. But he rubbed up against the cult, right? And the cult is orthodox. Orthodoxy, and you need to comply. And what's interesting is that I'm seeing that they're hiding in plain sight, but the mask is slipping. I hate using cliches, but I think the mask is slipping. And let's move on to why, right? So, here we go. Quote, I've heard from people on the board that many corporations about it, as have I. I've been having these conversations offline, and a lot of people are starting to go, oh, okay, all right, because they trust me, right? I'm somebody, I really need to charge. If I could call myself a diversity consultant and not fucking have reflux in my own mouth, I would absolutely, I should charge for it. But a lot of people ask my thoughts on things under the, behind the scenes. And I don't think that the wokes have read the room. I think they've created a bubble that's so tight and excluded everybody reasonable and anybody who is associated with anybody that's outside of their little fucking mean girl circle, and they've created such a insular bubble. They just don't really understand that people are waking up to this. Anyway, so I wandered off. So I heard from people on the board of many corporations about it. And yes, that's been true for me as well. So talking to senior executives in many places, I think in part because they just go, it's a bunch of fucking shit. Okay. And mostly because they're misogynist. That doesn't fix, I'll get to that, right? But I actually said this yesterday, where a lot of people that I talk to sound like full-on fucking MAGAs and MRAs. I don't think these wokes realise the level of backlash that's occurring here. And my concern is, I've said this before, that they're going to take all of the legitimate concerns and the legitimate fights and set us back decades. Right? I believe that modern feminists are setting back feminism by decades, and I believe that that race relations and all of those things, I think that we were starting to make progress, and I believe that they are going to crash and burn any progress that we've made since the 80s. Mark my words, the backlash is fucking brewing, and that makes me very sad. It makes me excited because I'm still in for the fight, and it gives me a chance to fucking feel right, but it also makes me feel worried. So, quote, I know that many HR departments have taken it seriously and tried to understand some of the unique rights we have in California about worker speech and beliefs. Yes. But Google hasn't stopped trying to push for a more diverse workplace with more women and people of colour. Good things. Okay, excellent. And the devil's in the details with this stuff, okay? So it detailed some progress this week towards its diversity goals. Yes. So Google's diversity report was released this week, okay? And we will go there now. Where are we? So this is going to be funny, right? Because this came out today as well. So there's a really weird, the fucking Google's having an internal culture war. I hate culture war, but they're having an internal culture war. And where are we? Google's diversity, where are we? CNET. Here we go. So Google's diversity numbers show incremental progress. Now remember, because Google has many hundreds of thousands of employees, when you include contractors and all of that sort of stuff, massive, massive business. When you're talking in small percentages, it's still quite substantial progress, right? But what I like to look at is what they're actually doing. Now, what's actually funny, because I'll show you the article that I flicked before, because I want to show you how this is spun, right? So how anything is evidence of white supremacy or racism or sexism or whatever. It's like, well, no, you just didn't meet your KPIs. So what Google did was they got behind the diversity and inclusion train. Valid, great. They listen, they go, okay, yes, we agree that there is a problem in tech. We're going to survey our employees and see what they think. Now, unfortunately, the way that they handled James Damore was disgraceful, but I think that it was also a consequence of just where they were at in the time, which is that they did what a lot of us did, was that we bought a lot of this horse shit before, these guys they're frauds, they're con men, right? So Google's diversity numbers show incremental progress. The search giant's diversity chief diversion officer, is also asked about workplace matters, including the corporate structure of her role and Google's contractor workforce. So, Google's latest diversity report shows the search giant made incremental progress in hiring Black and Latino employees. So, I'm guessing that this is only in the US. I haven't had a chance to read the full report yet. I apologize, but I'm assuming that is Black, and that's an American thing. Okay, so you're not going to have a Latino employees quota. That's an interesting critique of Google too. For a global company, why are they concentrating all of the bulk of their employees in the US, right? I'm talking major operational decisions. I know that I've been wanting to work in policy for some time in tech. I've been trying to do that, but there's no chance of you getting a job in policy outside of San Francisco. So they don't. Most of those strategic roles, they're all run out of America, which means that they're all Ivy League American. Why not expand your workforce globally? Right? Why not have, when you talk about diversity, why they do have head offices. Okay. They do have head offices in every country, but most of it is operational in terms of support, marketing, product, the localization and that sort of stuff. They're not actually doing anything at the strategic level, right? Internationally, right? They're not hiring people like me. So anyway, I could complain, but I don't. Anyway, so, hi me. Dear Mr. YouTube, who is transcribing this as we speak. Dear Mr. Facebook, who is also auto-transcribing and listening to this video to see if it's got hate speech in it. Can I has job, please? I know how fix problem. Okay. Anyway, fucking idiot. Okay, so Google's latest diversity report shows the search giant made incremental progress in hiring Black and Latino employees, underscoring the struggles Silicon Valley giants have in making their workforces more representative of the people who use their products. Okay, the numbers released on Tuesday are part of an annual practice at Google, which has a full-time employee base of more than 100,000 people. So that's really huge. That's not including part-time or subcontractors, which is quite a substantial thing with Google. I know several people who are subcontractors at Google. So now, in 2019, Google's bit of a mouthful. Google's global full-time workforce was 68% men and 32%. What? Oh, they left out women. Okay, it's fucking Jesus Christ, man. You have one job, which is to proofread your work. Okay, so in 2019, Google's global full-time workforce was 68% men and 32% women, compared with 68.4% men and 31.6% women a year before. So that's not bad. So that represents a 0.4% increase for women. That's not too shabby. That said, those numbers prove that James Damore has a point. I don't think that there's not a lot of women who are not in engineering who want to be in engineering right now who can't be in engineering. I'll tell you that now. The opportunity is there. The environment is right. Google is hiring. You get preferential treatment. If they're not going, then they're not going. It's like trying to telling girls learn to code is another one of those things that pisses me off, right? Because, well, you can teach them to code all they like. Doesn't mean they're going to, it's not, yeah. Anyway, whatever. They'll probably end up choosing web design because it's more interesting and it's got more aesthetic, right? It's just how it is. I mean, that said, I would like to have fucking been taken a bit more seriously, but, I believe in merit, whatever. So, again, what was my point? So Google's diversity report came out and there was incremental improvement, but I would actually say that I don't think it's modest, but I don't think it's enough. But what I think they've done as a result of diversity report is look at what works and look at what doesn't work. And I'm pretty sure that screaming at people about how privileged they are at a workshop, being yelled at by a blue fuck, person, doesn't work. Okay? So basically what's happened is I imagine that as a result of the diversity report, they've also looked at, they're a tech company, they look at what works and what doesn't work, and then they rationalize and move things around and try again, right? Move fast, break things. That's the philosophy, right? That's lean product management. It's the whole culture of fucking tech. How do these people not know this? Probably because they're non-tech people infiltrating a tech company and shouldn't fucking be there. Anyway. Okay. So, where are we? Where's the fucking... So, this is Article 0. Now, what's interesting is the NBC News appear to have also been Article 0 for the TP freak out, right? So they're not really fucking... Anyway. So, I need to give this context. I don't like to attack the individual authors, but this journalist is well known for targeting and leading the cancellation. She's like an Owen Jones type of person, right? She's somebody who has gotten people fired. She's very much in this sort of cult, right? So she's sort of she's infiltrated NBC, right? So take this. This is Article 0. Okay. Current and ex-employees allege Google drastically rolled back diversity and inclusion programs. Okay. So one well-liked diversity training program at Google called Sojourn was cut entirely, according to 7 former and current employees. Okay. What they've done is they've just gone, this is nonsense, it doesn't work, it's a waste of money, doesn't achieve anything, and I'm sorry, but yeah, that's probably what's happened. But the way they spin it, it's like, oh, this is just proof of it's like this closed loop of brain. Like it's like your brain is just stuck in a loop, right? So Google has significantly rolled back its diversity and inclusion initiatives in an apparent effort to avoid being perceived as anti-conservative. No, I just don't think that these things met their KPIs and they fucking killed the program. Like, I know how these things work, man. You know, these people, they just don't know how business works, how the world works. They think the world owes them something, right? I have been let down as a woman in tech repeatedly on a daily basis, right? On a weekly basis, I'm made to feel like shit, like I don't know anything, and I take work that is like less than my ability to pay my bills, because I know that as a working mother of an autistic kid and who is stuck in Perth, who is, all of these things, right? I'm not going to be able to work at Google. I wish I could, but it is how it is. If I haven't an axe to grind, or the Microsoft thing, right? I was talking about that before, right? If anyone had a beef against tech companies, it would be me, because I belong there. But I don't feel entitled to it. Anyway, these fucks. And then they turn around and say, oh no, they did it because they're trying to appease the Nazis. This is exactly what they've done. So what I have a feeling, this is what I think has happened. Zuckerberg had lunch with a couple of stakeholders, right? I talked about these in previous videos. So Zuckerberg had lunch with a couple of conservative stakeholders, and he got the thread pulled, like a lot of us, right? A lot of us have turned around and gone, oh, this isn't what it seems. Zuckerberg's trying to try to undo some of this mess that's been created because they've been infiltrated by a cult. Okay. And then they go, oh, that's not what it means. Oh, shit. Okay, fuck. Oh, my God. What do? Call Zuckerberg a Nazi when it's not. He's just fucking clearing house and cleaning house and realizing he fucked up by listening to the wrong people. Okay. Again, dear Facebook, listen to me. I know how to fix problem. Okay. Now, is that racist to do that? Fuck it, whatever. But this is how, it's just the leap that they make. But what's funny is what they do is these 7 fucking disgruntled diversity people who I know what they do. They run fucking monthly morning teas and they sit around and educate. It's an education program, right, on how to check your privilege. Now, I'm going to show you the name of some of these fucking things, because could you imagine having to sit in these fucking workshops? Oh my God. Even I'm a feminist. I understand where it comes from, but I couldn't fucking sit in these things. Oh my God. I would just roast. Anyway, so this is a win because I think that what's happening is that there's actually some people have just gone, oh, well, what we'll do is we'll get here, have your little fucking stupid workshops. Okay. You got it for a week. A year. Now, here's your KPIs. If you can show that this actually changes hearts and minds rather than sort of stoking the flames of resentment and people doubling down, okay, which is exactly the effect that it has, which is that people go fucking hell, right? And then if I was a CEO, I'd go, all right, well, give them their workshops, give them KPIs, and when they don't meet those KPIs, we'll get rid of it, right? But what we'll do is we'll show that it doesn't work. So that's unless you're in tech and you understand lean principles and the sort of the culture of tech, which is that there's no bad idea, right, necessarily. What it is they're engineers. They go, all right, let's try it, let's test it, let's see if it works, and if it doesn't work, let's get rid of it. Google do that with their products all the time, right? They got rid of the fucking Hangouts to YouTube thing because they went, oh, it doesn't work, it's too fucking time intensive, costs too much, get rid of it. They abandon products all the time. And it's the same thing with this. It's just another program that they've said, okay, here you go. Here's an idea. Here's some money because they got more money than fucking, but they're not stupid either. Right? And they probably saw how toxic this was making, all of this stuff was making their culture and probably, turned on it. So anyway, that's how it's likely to have worked. But just the woke spin on it, like, oh my God, we're going to see some doubling down. That's what we're going to see. We're going to see these people start to sue Google, which is going to be funny. Because I look forward to seeing some judges sort of just laugh them out of court. So Google has significantly rolled back its diversity and inclusion initiatives in an apparent effort to avoid being perceived as anti-conservative, according to 8 current and former employees. So they've gone to this woman who's a known ally, right? She has been known to fire people. So anyway, to get people fired and lead she's like, I hate SJW, but she's one of those, right? She's a cult leader. She's a cult member. She's part of the people. She's working at this place. So what you do is if you are a activist, you try to get your story to a journo who will leak the story, it will then get sort of quoted and picked up by other stories. I've obviously exploited this before. So, since 2018, internal diversity and inclusion training programs have been scaled back or cut entirely for Google employees, and 2 people who recently left the company told NBC News in interviews. In addition, they didn't tell NBC News, they told her. Okay, this is, you got to make sure that it's, yeah. So, in addition, they said the team responsible for those programs have been reduced in size and positions previously held by full-time employees have been outsourced or not refilled after members of the diversity teams left the company. I wonder why. Because they were performing and they were calling everyone fucking, they were just causing division and making everyone hate them. Okay. All right, so one well-liked diversity training program at Google, see how biased this is, called Sojourn, a comprehensive racial justice program created for employees to learn about implicit bias and how to navigate conversations about race and inequality, i.e. how to learn about pronouns. Like, could you imagine fucking these things? Oh my God, these things. They're insufferable. They're painful. It's basically like workshops on how to post on Twitter. It's like fucking, it's run by idiots who just take these things and run with them and create workshops. Anyway, so according to 7 blah, blah, blah. This is long. Anyway, so just the spin. So this is Article 0. So 7, they keep saying 7 current and former employees over and over again. When you factor in the fact that there's 100,000 Google employees, I think it's interesting. So, where are we? The current and former employees agreed to speak to NBC News on the condition of anonymity for fear of reprisal for speaking to the press. No, they have an NDA. And they were fired for not meeting their diversity KPIs that were clearly set for a program that's stupid and doesn't work, and they know it. They threw you some money, right? You ran workshops that no one fucking, oh my God. Okay. So Melanie, notice that okay, no, that's unconstructive. It's not her fault she was given a shit name like I was. But fucking hell, can we spell names proper? Why do they always have weirdly spelt names? Anyway, Melanie Parker, Google's chief diversity officer, disputed the allegation that Google has scaled back its diversity and inclusion efforts. We're really maturing our programs to make sure that we're building our capability. Yeah, so so basically I know that's corporate speak for we rationalised it. We're not getting rid of it. We've just moved stuff around and gotten rid of what doesn't work and keeping what does work, right? And when you actually look at the tangible things that Google has done, right? Well, I'm not going to, yeah. But the way that it's just very loaded. So efforts to diversify the industry have moved at a glacial pace despite increases in hiring across major Silicon Valley firms. In 2019, Google's employee diversity rose less than a percentage point from the previous year for black employees to 3.3% and just over 2 percentage points to 5.7%. So you think that a workshop fucking making everyone feel embarrassed about who they are doesn't solve anything? No shit. Do you know what does? Daycare. Hiring outside of fucking a city that costs $1 million for a 1-bedroom apartment. Hiring from somewhere other than Ivy League universities. Putting ridiculous psychological fucking warfare on people who apply for a job at Google and putting them through impossible fucking tasks and stupid fucking tasks that most rational, sane people who've lived an actual life won't put up with. They would say, no, I don't want to work there because your practices are fucking ridiculous. They have other problems going on, okay? They have a problem with attraction and retention, like many other people, many other companies, right? Probably not so much attraction, but they do have a culture, right? A clear culture of tech bros that exclude people like me, okay? Thank you. Now, where's right? Oh, here we go. Blah, 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 blah. Whatever. So this is the original one. But what's interesting is that then they start to quote this woman's stuff, right? Hang on. Staff claim Google cut diversity initiatives over fear of conservative backlash. It's not true. And also, one thing you've got to know about big companies is that they back the winner. This means that Trump's winning. This means that Google has decided that this woke shit is a losing fucking thing. It doesn't work, it doesn't achieve anything, and it doesn't actually have any real major impact. Now, what they would have done is look at the diversity report and look at what programs actually did have a tangible fucking result and keep that and allocate more resources to it. And that's what I think that has happened here. So it's been claimed that Google scaled back diversity and inclusion efforts to avoid being perceived as anti-conservative. Again, so quoting the article that came from an activist that has infiltrated a certain media organisation who prints that as true. It's 7 people who've just been fired, right, who are in this cult, who are in the minority, 7, okay, 7 people. So the sources told the news outlet that a number of internal diversity and inclusion training programs have been scaled back. Fuck! Get a copy editor! Jesus! Okay. Oh my God. Okay. The sources told the news outlet that a number of internal diversity and inclusion training programs have to be scaled back or cut entirely since 2018. They said that teams responsible for these programs have been reduced in size and positions previously held by full-time staff have been outsourced or not refilled after members of the diversity teams left the company. Yes, because it didn't work. It's nonsense. Okay? It's almost like ladies who brunch achieves nothing. It's almost like you need to do some actual fucking work. And that Google doesn't owe you anything and that you didn't meet your KPIs and that they have fucking redeployed resources to things that actually fucking work. Okay? This is this The 7 of the current and former employees told NBC that a well-liked program called Sojourn, which offered comprehensive training on implicit racial bias and how to navigate conversations about race and inequality, was cut entirely. The last time the program ran was 2018, according to 4 of the sources. They said they believed the program was cut due to the company's fear of backlash from conservatives. One anonymous employee told NBC, "You mean the person who broke their non-disclosure agreement? One of the major motivations for cutting Sojourn is that the company doesn't want to be seen as anti-conservative." That's not true. It doesn't want to invite lawsuits or claims by right-wing white employees. No. It's that same, see, the same old dog whistle shit, right? Right-wing. I'm right-wing according to these people. Okay. Right-wing employee about Google discriminating against them. So they're shading James Damore there. Okay. Now, in 2017, so they're saying backlash against inclusion initiatives. So in 2017, Google fired James Damore, the author of a controversial internal memo that criticised the company's efforts to create a diverse and inclusive environment, claiming that women were unsuited to work in engineering for biological reasons. Right? That's not what he said, but let's just move on. The company said that Damore had violated its policies against advancing harmful gender stereotypes, with CEO Sundar Pichai, sorry, I'm bad with that, to suggest that a group of our colleagues have traits that make them less biologically suited to work at Google is offensive and not okay, which isn't really what he said. I'm actually I've gone down the wrong rabbit hole because I'm reading you the wrong article. That's all right. Okay, let's just move on. Hey, here we go. So in the report, this is what's interesting, is that they've put more resources towards the things that work. So what they've done is they've put things like the bias removal tools, right? Which what they do is they remove bias in CVs, right? So most CVs, for people who don't know, are processed electronically for keywords and that sort of thing. So what they've done is tried to remove, any kind of identifying traits or language, all those sorts of things. Do they work? Yeah, I don't know. Amazon had it turned out that they still were biased anyway, right? Because at the end of the day, this is structural. It is across the board. The fact you were born behind. Okay, so that's one of those things where, when I left year 12, I wanted to go to medical school. Couldn't do it because I had to work, and medical school requires commitments and money and things like that I couldn't do. So I couldn't work. I had to work, so I couldn't dedicate the time that I had to study. I couldn't go to med school because I had to work and go to uni. So I did a degree that was more, more able to be balanced with other things. Then I became a mother. Again, that was a choice I made. But at the same time, there's all these things, right? You're not, so the reason why I didn't get to be a PhD from Stanford was not because I wasn't good enough. It was because of a lot of structural stuff along the way. So what you need to do with diversity and inclusion is consider all of those steps, okay? Not just yelling at people about how privileged they are, because that doesn't get anywhere. It doesn't get you anywhere, okay? No, if anything, they're more likely to just tell you to fuck off. Now, that's my problem with a lot of this stuff, is the idea that this is I'm already seeing it, right? Which is proof, Breitbart, proof that feminists, there is no problem, and James Damore was right, and there is no problem with women in tech, and it's all equal. It's like, well, no, that's not true. Okay, it's absolutely not true. And what the problem with this is that, again, in the light of all of these cultural wars, that good ideas are going to get lost in the tribalism, and the real problems are going unaddressed. And what we're going to see is a massive backlash now, because any woman who says there is a problem with men in tech, they're going to go, you're fucking, own the libs. And it's like, well, it's not that simple, right? So what I'm going to say to any blokes out there who are in tech is there is a problem. However, right, I'm also going to acknowledge that most of the problems that I've ever had in my career with being held back or trapped or bullied or mistreated have been by other women. Okay, I don't know why that is. Laurie actually pointed out, sorry, I missed that question, Laurie. I wonder if they were doing culture surveys in the background behind these courses. Oh, without a doubt. Google measure every fucking thing. They measure everything. And now if you think that Google doesn't make decisions without data. If there is any company in this world that makes decisions based on data and based on predictive analytics and predictive fucking behavior, it's Google. They're the company of predictive products. That's what they do, is predict. Okay? So it's not... So, okay, that's actually a good point. So there's something to be said about... So early on, when I was studying politics, one thing... Sometimes these phrases are evergreen and they apply to a lot of situations, but we're talking about Rupert Murdoch and his power in the media, particularly in Australia, right? And basically, he was on the record as saying he's not political, he backs the winner. That's changed, obviously. Since sort of Gillard and that sort of stuff, he's gone off the fucking rails. But originally, he would have backed the winner. So you would find that Murdoch would just do a 180 on because he didn't like... Oh, well, Malcolm Turnbull recently just came out saying that he disagreed with Rupert Murdoch, and Rupert Murdoch was able to fucking get him spilled, right? That man has a lot of power. Google and Facebook back the winner. So I think, so that was what I said, which was the KPIs were probably not met, hence the cutting of the programs. So they had evidence. Yeah, and it's just that simple. It's not, and also it's not, you can't just say anti-conservative, it's like, these people are idiots. They should... Do you know what annoys me is that I thought that only smart people worked at Google. These guys are fucking dodgy. They're con men and women, mostly women, right? And I think that the meal ticket's running out. They saw a little grift. They saw a gap. They saw a little thing. Like I could be, oh, look at me. I can run my diversion workshops, right? But eventually the data will catch up with you. The data catches up with you. And if you don't perform, you don't perform. Okay. And, the thing about capitalism and even the tech companies, right? Even the tech companies. And the thing about global corporations going to corporate, all that sort of stuff. Is if it doesn't make the money, they won't do it. I said that yesterday. And I'm finding it interesting because it's turning out that it doesn't make money. Okay. It probably makes money in a certain way, but I think they keep it at brand level and not in operational level. I think that there's difference. It's fascinating. It's really, really fascinating to see this happen because I wish, it annoys me. Like I want to go work at Google even if I can't talk about it with anyone else. I just want to work there and ask just so I know that I'm right, which is that these people have had a conversation around the table and they're probably secretly laughing at these people. So don't forget that the people who fund Google are hedge fund managers. They're mostly conservative people, right? Don't fucking fool yourself. It's all a veneer. So the actual people who have real power at Google, board members, the board, okay? You look at who makes up the Google board, right? It's serious money, right? There's no fucking wokes. And they're kind of gone. I can see it from at the board level that this could be a bit of fun because they got more money than they can fucking deal with. And so they go, all right, let's prove that this works or doesn't work. Let's just test it. Let's have an experiment. Google runs experiments all the time. And so it's going to be interesting to see. I'd love to just get my hands on the data. And it's data that I can't get, and it annoys me because it's like the most fascinating thing. But I'd love to just see all the internal fucking shit that happened here that led to this, because they've definitely sat there and gone, oh, we got to kill these stupid workshops because people are pissed off and they hate them. And there's like a small group of mean girls, right, who fucking keep pushing this thing. Ladies who lunch. Talking about feminism, and they haven't even read a fucking book. I hate these fucking people. I've spent my whole life being on the fucking front line, and these fuckwits with their fucking little 50s style dresses going, look look at me, feminism, girl power, fucking hair. And they run workshops and they like, you know, write think pieces, but actually don't do anything to address like the material issues, which is higher mothers, daycare, sorry, work-life balance, right? Ugh. Anyway, I don't know. So, any other questions? Any comments? What was interesting, actually, give me a minute, is the fucking headlines. Do you know how hard it was to find an actual headline in this fucking thing, right, that was even remotely fucking reliable? And this is actually on Google News, which I find interesting. So they don't really, you know. So Google cuts diversity programs over fears of seeming anti-conservative, according to report. These are the most passive ones, right? Google denies its diversity programs are stuttering to appease conservatives. They're not. They're just balancing it. It's fucking ridiculous. Former Google engineer fired over memo, drops discrimination lawsuit. That was the most reliable one I could see, right? Former Google engineer fired over sexist memo, drops lawsuit. See how interesting, like you could just study headlines. Oh, you know, Banks and brunch feminism gives me the fucking shits, Laurie. There is nothing I hate more. And the thing is that they came for social media and I said nothing. They called themselves fucking social media. They're all just bimbos. They're bimbo grifters, right? Fucking, and they just run workshops and they use their tits and they make these fucking morning teas and these fucking things and they achieve absolutely nothing. Except creating nothing of substance, except they don't actually do anything. And the second that they actually have to stand up to a man or stand up to someone or do anything remotely feminist, they back down and they giggle and they pull out their tits, okay? And what they do is they try to destroy other women like me who aren't afraid to stand up for themselves and who are assertive because I show them how fucking like bad they are. Right? There's a reason why these fucking women's things don't like me, okay? Because I have like legit feminist credentials, I have legit political credentials, I have legit tech credentials, and yet I don't have a single fucking speaking gig at any of these things. Why is that? Is it because I might say that this is all a load of shit and you're actually not achieving anything other than, you know, canapes and fucking and drinks? You're not achieving anything that does anything. You're sitting there fucking, you know, pretending to be feminist. You don't even know what it fucking means. It's just like this is okay. I've had a beef with women in IT as well. All these organisations, women in tech organisations are the fucking worst. They're the absolute worst. And I would love to mentor some young women in tech, but I get in trouble whenever I do because I basically say to them, I tell them the truth. And they go, because they go, well, what do you suggest? I said, well, don't have kids until later in your career, all right, until you're established. Don't take shit, right? But it's going to cost you. It will cost you your career. Speaking up will cost you your career, right? Yeah. But, you know, like any woman in tech who's actually worth their salt will tell you that all of this stuff is a load of shit and that these re-education workshops don't mean shit, okay? What you can do is remove bias, but you can't, nothing that I reckon Microsoft, you know, actually, let's go back to that Microsoft story. I asked for feedback about why I didn't get that solutions architect role, right? And they said, she has to be included in the panel because she's the woman. It has to be unanimous, right? Our hands are tied. She's known for being difficult, okay? And I'm sorry, all right? That won't be addressed. That's an example of a fucking quota gone wrong, which is that woman, right, was put in charge of my fate to prevent another woman getting a senior position at Microsoft. So suck on that. And you know, I would have preferred 5 fucking men who didn't actually try to trap me in the interview, right? This is what I'm saying. Quotas don't work, okay? They needed a senior woman and she was a cunt. And she held my career back by 5 years because I didn't get the job at Microsoft despite everybody pretty unanimously, except for her, deciding I was a star. And I think it was because I'm a star that she actually fucking didn't want me there. She saw that I could be trouble. And maybe she was right. Because obviously a big part of being a solutions architect is actually stakeholders and difficult stakeholders. So there is some wisdom to this as well. And this is where self-awareness comes in as well, okay? So I'm not sitting there going, oh, fuck that system. They owed me. That job was mine. I was like, no, actually that was an interesting lesson, okay? Because there's some wisdom to that, which is that I then went away and learned how to manage myself better when I'm under fire, okay? Now, one part of dealing with people in a corporate setting is dealing with people you don't like and people who make your life difficult. So she taught me a good lesson, which was, how to try and be nicer. I've never been good at it. I still just tell people to fuck off, right? To be honest with you, right? If I had that interview now, this was 5 years ago in Sydney. If I'd had that interview now, I'd have gotten up and I would have walked out and I would have filed a complaint. But because I don't put up with that shit anymore, it's why no one wants to. I wonder why no one likes you. But I've got to, it's like, well, no, I'm not going to be treated like a fucking farm animal, right? I've already been given, and remember, when you do 5 interviews, you can't do 5 fucking interviews in the same outfit. Cost money, cost time. It's Sydney, right? That was like fucking 12 hours of my time that I gave them for free. So anyway, that was a story, but that's just, one example of being a woman in tech around interviewing that none of this is going to fix. Okay? I think don't be a cunt and don't, I don't want to be sitting in a position that I don't deserve. Especially somewhere like Google where, you think that you'd be working with some of the smartest people in the world, right? If I found out that I was working around, in a team of 10 fucking engineers and me, and I had only gotten the job because I was a woman, not because that they thought that I was smart, and that they're not going to want to fucking. How is that going to help with her experience? What that's going to do is just affirm. Because women are fucking smart beings. You turn up on the first day and you can tell, right? When you get a job that someone else wanted, or you get a job that someone else that they don't feel that you deserve, they make your life hell. And what that does is that you get a whole generation of women who got the job because of that they were women, right? And I'm not going to talk about minorities. That's a different thing. That's again, this is complicated, right? But women, okay? Let's talk about white women, okay? White women specifically in tech. This is a white issue. I think when you add in other factors, it becomes a bit more complicated. But when it comes to sitting in a room with a bunch of people who are already hostile to you, how are you not going to go? It becomes a self-affirming and self-fulfilling prophecy because you're in a room of people that are hostile to you. And then you're going to say, well, tech is hostile towards me. You're going to think it's because you're a woman, right? This is how this cult operates. Not because you get what I mean? And it's like, you'll sit there and it's like, well, and then you'll go off like these fuckers and go, oh, well, it's just because they're racist and they want to pander to the conservatives and all this sort of stuff. It's like, well, no, you didn't meet your KPIs because we put it there. You didn't perform. And anyway, I don't like this perpetual victimhood. And again, this is not saying there's not real problems with sex in tech and those sorts of things. But I think that it's more complicated than just running workshops. And I'm actually glad to see that Google might be investing more in remote work, remote teams. They might give me a shot. You never know. Google might give me a shot one day. I might actually have a shot. I'm too old for that. I don't know, maybe. Who knows? But I'm just saying, like I'm just saying. Probably could work at Google if I wanted. Just, I don't know. I don't play nice with others, as you can tell. So, but there's a real problem, okay? And I'm just glad. I'm happy to see them cleaning house. That's all I'm going to say is I'm happy to see them clearing house, and Don't believe that Google are. Don't believe this fucking nonsense. Like the journo who wrote that planted that article to try and get some sort of hysteria whipped up over Google, but I read the report. I haven't read the diversity report, but I read like summaries of it. And it just looks like they've just reallocated and restructured. Do you know how often tech companies reorg? Like eBay fucking reorganizes so many times. It's like they're constantly reorganizing, constantly, moving around and shuffling resources and shuffling and experimenting. Some people find that stressful. I find it very stressful. I like things to be fairly stable. But, there's a lot of people there who, again, that's just, I wouldn't listen to them. Don't listen. That's cult. That's the cult. They're doubling down. They're going to double down. So anyway, I've talked too long. I need to go because I need to get ready for another doctor's appointment. And I'm sorry this was so long. And I'm sorry that I coughed to death halfway through. So that's good. I love you. Thank you for your precious life seconds. Beware of the wokes. But I think we're winning. I think common sense is prevailing. I really do. I'm optimistic. Okay. I love you. Thanks for watching. Oh, like, subscribe, obey, donate, all that stuff. I've got a book that I'm writing. Chapter 1 is dropping on my Patreon on June 30. And I'll definitely be finishing writing it on June 29th. But I'm going to do it. I've committed to it. Okay. I love you. Bye.